I have fond memories of the band. I have really good memories. Um, and really, the bad memories for me were more towards the end. But in general, I enjoyed the experience and learnt a lot about myself during that time. And have looked back to those times in reference to where I am now a lot. And it's given me a platform on which I kind of base who I am and what I do now. I did have lots of friends at school, and I don't know. No one ever really used to ask why don't we see you after school. I got a job quite early as well, playing in a bar every Saturday night. I think I was about 12, 12 and a half. And that really made me push me up to the next level because I had an audience to play for every week. And then by the time I was 14, I got a job which was basically gigged on a Thursday night late as well, 8 o'clock till 12 at night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon, Sunday night. And that was part of a duo. It was a drums and keyboards duo, and we used to play for comedians and singers and stuff like that. I was really fluent at sight reading and was on the way to be I was a really, really good keyboard player at that time. And until I joined the band, I thought that's where I was going to go. I thought I was going to be like some kind of pianist or keyboard player, or and of course I joined the band and really didn't touch a keyboard for about 8 years, and I do regret that because it's in my work now. I have to play keyboards a lot, and I always think if I hadn't have given this up, I suck now when I play keyboards. It's so bad. And I was really good when I was in my teens. And it's something I kind of lost throughout the band years. In order of singles, Do What You Like got us our record deal, I think. Not just the song on its own, because as a song it's not brilliant, but it got us noticed. It got labels to look and go, take that? Is it something we could do? Would we invest in this? And we were torn between two labels. I think it was Mercury and RCA. And RCA really wanted to do it. They wanted around at that time, that 91, 92, there were no bands with images. It was all faceless dance music. It was, Smash Hits magazine were desperate to put somebody on the front that looked good, that could sell them magazines again to teenage girls. People were crying out for Take That, a band with an image. And that got us our deal. And soon after that, we kind of rush released. I think we got our deal in October, and by December we were putting out another single. That was called Promises, and it just made it into the top 40. We went in at 38 and then dropped out a week later. And we thought, is this ever going to happen? And then we went back into recording, and I wrote another track called Once You've Tasted Love. And again, big release, big video, plenty of TV shows, plenty of magazines, and that failed as well to get into the top 40. Now, nowadays, if you have one miss, you're dropped. If you have two misses, you're definitely dropped. To have three misses would be unheard of. But our label believed in us. Nigel was letting me develop, but at the same time he was pressing heavily on me to get current, listen to the radio, write with people, just immerse myself in popular music. I was writing dated records that sounded like 80s records. My lyrics needed work. He was encouraging me to really put some time into this, and it was a pressure. And kind of in a way I felt defeated that we had to release a cover version, but it did what it did for us. It got us in the charts, which is what we needed. And I thought if we could just have one hit, one or two hits, then I feel we could be, the original material could be discovered. And it eventually was, because we had a top 10 with Only Takes a Minute, we had a top 20 with I Found Heaven, and then the next single was A Million Love Songs, and of course it was my lead vocal, it was my song. I really felt like I had high hopes for this record, and we had a huge hit with that. Stayed in the top 10 for 5 weeks, and I think at that point people were starting to go, okay, maybe there is something more to this band. And then I think a real key for our album, our first album, because until Million Love Songs we weren't really shifting albums, we were only selling singles. The album started to move up the charts with A Million Love Songs being played on the radio, and for the first time we'd started to see album sales. And then we had a fantastic remix of a song called Could It Be Magic, which was kind of like an afterthought on the record. We had done it, but the production was so bad on it, it was embarrassing. But one of the guys at the record company had got this remix done, which was unbelievable. It was like a Motown flavour. We all heard it in the van one day, and it was just like, this is unbelievable. And we brought it out sort of, light release halfway through December, and I think we stayed at number 3 throughout January, right over Christmas and throughout January, and that was really a big hit for us. And the album went through the roof. We did double, triple platinum over Christmas on the album, and all of a sudden we're an album selling act. What everyone said, pop music, it's gone, it's had it was back. It was at that point everyone was starting to retune themselves back into the fact that pop music was making its comeback. I think we all felt in control until about, I always time this by records, I don't know the years, about Pray. And Pray was out, I think we were number 1 for 4 weeks or something. Just something happened when we had our first number 1. Something all of a sudden struck a chord with me, which made me, it was like you're all of a sudden aware of what is actually happening here. You get home after a tour, and there's 150 girls outside your front drive. People have thrown stuff in your garden. Someone had tried to break into the back door. Your mum and dad had, had someone come round from the newspaper. You got answer phone messages from the News of the World. It suddenly started to become apparent that, okay, right, this is getting serious. And then you'd start thinking, oh, quick, Nigel, call me, I need to get away again. We need to go to Germany, I need to get away from this house. You sleep at night, someone throws something at the window, there's girls out there singing Could It Be Magic till 3 in the morning. You start thinking, oh, this is tiring, this is tiring. Go to get some shopping in, you're signing autographs at the checkout. There's a photographer coming outside, can have a picture of you with an Asda bag next to you. Started thinking, this is good, but this is a bit irritating now. So you get back together again, and it's all good, because it's all laughs and jokes and games. It's all good, and then you start telling each other your little stories, things that happen. You won't believe what this woman said to me, and this guy, he was so rude to me. I went into this bar and someone wanted to fight me, and you start to tell each other, and it makes it a little bit better, because you think, oh, everyone else is going through it, but man, what are we doing here? This is getting serious. And of course, when you're in a band like this, that all the fame comes and the hit records, and it's a year, 2 years later till the money comes with it. It's a year, 2 years later till you can have gates and security and cameras and being able to put that distance between you and people who want to stalk you and try and be a part of your life constantly. The second album was when I thought I really became a songwriter. Confidence is a big thing when you're a creative person. We'd had hits, I'd had some hit records, I wanted more. Everyone was talking about this next record, so after we'd toured and everyone sort of went out, had a month off and went on holiday, there was one thing on my mind, and that was to go back home to the studio and write an unbelievable second album. And I mean, it's been a long time since I've listened to our records, but our second album was really good, I thought. Pray was the first single from the new record, and I think it was at that very point where people started to take me seriously as a songwriter. I won an Ivor Novello Award for that song, and at that point people were starting to ask in interviews, so what's the process, what's the songwriter? I'd never been asked that before. It was never part of the interview, and that felt great. I thought we all got on incredibly well. For 5 guys with egos, we all had egos, travelling round, living in each other's pockets 24 hours a day all week, I think we got away with it quite well. I think that was the one comment people always, even now, say to me, "Can't believe how well you guys used to get on." You know, you'd go past your dressing room and you could hear the laughter coming from there. We'd be laughing, you know. I remember lots of those times, you know. I don't ever remember sitting in a hotel room on my own. I'd remember it that we'd be in someone's hotel room, all sat talking, having a drink. I think we did well. I think we did all right for that. I think as I was closer to to some band members than others, would have different conversations with different people, but in general, never rubbed with anybody. When I joined the band, I never used to drink, I never used to smoke. I was really boring with all that. I mean, not even a little drink, I just wasn't interested in it. So I discovered during the band drink, actually. So when we went out, I used to really get drunk, really drunk. And I mean, it used to tickle everyone when I got drunk, it really did. So that's what I graduated to, joining the band. And I'll never forget, by the end of by our last European tour we did, that we were all so bored on the road. I mean, it's just, you know, doing the same every day, especially interviews. I mean, good God, it's painful. It's painful. You're hanging around dressing rooms for hours and hours, and we all smoked by the end, all of us, everybody. So we'd pull up at a TV studio, and the van doors would be open, and there'd be these plumes of smoke, just like Top of the Pops, coming out of this van, just poof. You know, the lid would come off this ashtray, and this smoke would just rise, and oh, we were terrible. I mean, I left. That's one thing. I left the band a chain smoker. I feel often very guilty for not noticing a lot of the things I'm now told Robbie went through. I mean, Jason talks about things a lot when I see him about. He'll tell you in his interview of he noticed things about Robbie. I seem to miss a lot of those things. I never noticed him drinking. He always used to smoke. I always used to bum fags off him and stuff, and he always used to smoke. I don't remember the drink. I remember the drugs starting. I don't remember the drink. I think the biggest problem with Robbie, Gary, is that we were both trying to do the same thing. We both wanted solo careers. Now, when you get that, you get the press and the whole media wanting a competition. There's nothing more exciting than a duel. There just isn't. Goes back in history, that does. Everybody loves a fight out. And I think that at that point, I mean, I know for certain I was probably at my worst point personally. I was on a massive confidence, the biggest my ego's ever been. And I reckon Robbie was probably in a similar place, coming out of the band. I mean, you just think the world owes you everything. When you've been at that height, you just think everything you touch, everything that moves, turns to triple platinum. You know, it's that mind. Great mind for an artist, that is. We decided to go on as a four-piece because, one, we had to. We had a huge tour. We not only had a tour in England ahead, I remember we had an Australian tour, we had a Southeast Asian tour to do afterwards. So for that reason alone, we had to go on. We could have lost, I mean, a lot of money if we'd had the stages made. We were deep in investment basically in these shows. We had to do them. So we decided between us, right, come on, knuckle down, let's go and do them on our own, you know. If anyone wants their money back because Robbie's not in the band, we'll give it them back and we'll resell the tickets, no problem, but let's deliver, let's go and do that. And we did that up until that Christmas. We just worked and worked and worked. We went to America, we did some promotion there as a four-piece. I mean, we kept at it. Nothing stopped for us. And then we all went on holiday at Christmas, and that's when the band ended. If we hadn't have had that break, I think we'd have happily gone on for another year probably. But everyone had that break, we all went away and had that time to think, and you know, it's not what it used to be. There used to be 5, now there's 4. It's not take that anymore. And it wasn't. And at that point, it seemed like a good time to do a greatest hits and go our separate ways. It was always my plan to be behind the scenes, I guess, writing, producing, making records, and letting someone else go through all the stuff we've talked about today. And it's the next step, I think. It's the obvious next step. You know, if you're a footballer, you become a coach or a manager or whatever. And I feel like it was a next step for me to go into production, to go into songwriting and make records for other people, help and teach and guide other artists for all those things that I've been lucky enough to learn. Try and help them not make those mistakes, or you know, I guess give a bit back as well, help in ways that I guess some other producers couldn't. I think that we touched a lot of people, and it wasn't a generational thing either. I think it was multi-generations actually we touched. Okay, it started off with young girls, but you know, as it does with families, you know, the parents end up listening to what the kids listening to, and so on. And I mean, our gigs by the end, our live shows, and we were always renowned for our live shows being unbelievable events. You would see a massive cross-section, and I guess if you asked someone in the street, they would say nice songs, great bunch of lads, and we all thoroughly enjoyed it when they were together. It was fun. It was fun because there's 5 of you. It's a laugh. It's dreams coming true. It's what we wanted. It wasn't serious. None of us took it seriously. It was just great. And at that point, you know, we were all feeling like we were playing a part in it. We weren't being led. And And it was like, this is why we've done this, and this is what we're getting because of it.
Because I was into breakdancing, there was all this, certain things attached to it, like graffiti. And it was a graffiti. I used to graffiti buses, bus windows and the backs of seats. And then one day, the bus driver must have smelt this. I mean, we raided this bus, and he must have smelt it downstairs, and he decided to park it outside the police station. Radio them, we tried running off the bus, he'd locked the doors, and the police came just across the road and got us off. Back of a van, in the cell, fingerprints, and don't tell me mum, don't tell me mum. I mean, it was about 15, very childish. I was invited to an audition for this group he was putting together, which, you know, had no name at that time. And it told me the day. I went to work and said, please, 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 can I have half a day off? And luckily for me, he gave me half a day off. And if he hadn't given me half a day off, I would have been looking at someone else. I would have been looking at a boy group on TV saying, oh yeah, he's gay, he's gay. Like lads do, you know, they're always saying somebody's gay when they're not gay, but who gives a damn? I liked Jason straight away because I already knew that he could dance, and he was a good dancer. And Matt was just so bubbly and so smiley, and you know, you never seen such big teeth. I don't really remember Robbie so much. It was I just remember everybody being pleasant, and Gary was serious, more professional, but was still friendly. You know, I remember everybody being nice. I didn't dislike anybody. I just thought, you know, this is but when you're there and it's an audition, you don't know what's going to happen, so you don't really judge people at that time, because you're not thinking, oh, these are going to be the people that I'm going to be with for the next 6 years. You just think, oh, this is an audition, these are just guys, and maybe there's been another 10 guys before these guys. You're not given the whole story. We went to a studio in Manchester, a dance studio called Peaches, I think it was. It had a bit camp, didn't it? And we had this choreographer. It was a nice guy, but Nigel had ordered him to do to make us do press-ups every morning as soon as we got in there, and sit-ups, loads of press-ups. And I was thinking, what the fuck are we doing this for? What the hell are we doing this for? Nigel had obviously told him that we need to build our bodies up, make ourselves look more muscular, more masculine, and to be honest with you, the routines we were doing, I wasn't into. I mean, me and Jason went to Nigel in this early stage and said, you know, me and Jason can make up routines. Give us a chance, give us a chance. And he was kind of not so sure about it, and we had to, you know, we had to keep saying, just give us a chance to do this routine. He said, okay then, right, the choreographer doesn't not coming in that week, you two do this, try and do these routines. And we did these routines together, and Nigel came into the rehearsing studio with his Chip Balm, or his Chip Butty, whatever, and he goes, okay then, go on then. You know, really quite serious, and you know, letting everyone know who's in charge. So we did our routine, and I think he nearly choked on his Chip Butty. He was saying, oh, don't like it, don't like it, don't like it. And me and Jason were just so pissed off that he didn't like it, because we knew it was good, but I think it was because it was our decision going against his decision that we really needed a choreographer. I liked going in gay clubs. It was, the people were so friendly, and I think because they were gay and they were looking at you, it was kind of flattering in a way, you know, that they might want to shove their hand down your pants or whatever. I don't know. It was flattering, and everybody was so nice. It was just everybody was so nice and so welcoming, and it was our start. And I really appreciate that start, whether it's gay or straight. It doesn't matter. It was just an amazing start to start in gay clubs and gain a gay following. I always hated that title, The Body, honestly. Nigel used to, well, didn't make me, but it was always a suggestion from him. And once it was suggested from him, the rest of the guys wound me up saying, yeah, you should wear a vest. Howard, why don't you wear a vest? Yeah, you should wear a vest, Howard. So that nobody else had to wear a vest. And I was the one mostly stuck in a vest because they thought I had the best body. Although Jason was kind of empowering me with his body. I was never, I don't know, I was never vain about my body, although I always looked after my body. But I was never the one that liked to go around, you know, showing off, getting my tits out and stuff. It was kind of, I always wanted to hide it a little bit. I'd never wanted to show it off. Oh yeah, in La Cage, one of our first gigs, there was this curtain separating the changing room from the rest of the people. And just all these guys kept popping their head around this curtain going, wee! And all giggling and stuff like that. And we were like, there with our, you know, bloody trousers down to our knees and stuff, and these guys popping their heads, and we were just laughing about it, you know. It wasn't like hiding ourselves, but yeah, that was quite funny. I remember the track that they played, our first track, the intro track, which was I think it was Get Out of My Car, is it, by Get Out of Da Da by Billy Ocean. I don't know what the track's called. And the intro, that was the intro, and we was like running through this crowd, having our asses pinched, our front bits pinched, and trying to get to the stage, trying to push past everybody, and you know, almost missing the cue for the beginning of the song. The two singles after Do What You Like, it wasn't so successful. Although we thought we'd made it when the second single, Promises, went in at 38. We thought, oh great, you know, obviously Nigel was thinking different things. Once You Tasted Love, which was after that, which I actually thought was a great song. I remember listening to a Radio 1 show where they review singles, and I remember one of the DJs slagging it off, and everybody around the table, the round table, whatever they were sat at, all had a little dig at it. So because it was on Radio 1 and we've been told so much about Radio 1, how great it was, you know, you kind of thought that single's never going to stand a chance now. Thinking that millions and millions and millions of people are listening to this record review show at 10 o'clock at night. And that went in at 43. And because we was on RCA at the time, BMG, we thought, oh, they're going to drop us like a ton of bricks. So we came up with the idea to release this song, this cover called It Only Takes a Minute, Girl. It Only Takes a Minute. And we just did everything. We thought the only way, it was make or break, and the only way that we can stop ourselves from going down, and the only way we can be big or get on the road to being big, is to do everything that God sent. And we did under 18s, we did schools, we did over 18s, we did gay discos, we did as much as we could, and we made a good video. We got good stylists in to style us, and even the video was even the video was different. It was more raw, you know, dancing in a boxing ring, I don't know, making us look hard and stuff, and the way we were styled as well. It was different, and that changed things. But the power of It Only Takes a Minute, the song itself, really got the song into the charts. Pray came along, and it was we had the chance to go abroad and do a video, and we went to Acapulco, which I thought was going to be this amazing destination. I mean, maybe it was in the 70s, but we went there and I just wasn't impressed with it. They were telling us that be careful of the sea lice, you know, and that put me off going in the sea. And we did this video with these producers and directors, and it was a good video, but we was doing all the sexual thing and stuff, you know, like I was on near this fountain covered in baby oil, doing all this down my chest and stuff, and I don't know, I think even then it felt a little bit uncomfortable, but you was, I don't know, you was looking at the big picture, that girls like it. You know, girls like this kind of thing. Maybe not now, but they did then. Yeah, and we did the video, and we absolutely loved the song. Gary wrote the song, and amazingly it went to #1. Well, it wasn't amazingly, but it was because we knew it had really big potential to get in the top 10. But to get to #1, I mean, that's every group's dream. Yeah, in a big way, it interfered with our lives. I mean, you had constant flow of girls outside your house every day. I mean, that wasn't such a big problem, but it's the things that they did. You know, they would write all over everything, disturb the neighbours, break things. Sometimes try pinching things out of your garden, and it got bad once. I used to have a stalker who would wait in a lay-by as I drove past on the motorway, and then she would follow me. She would write me letters saying, I've seen you waiting outside my bedroom while I've been getting changed. I've seen you waiting in your car, obviously to cause a bit of a disturbance between me and my ex-girlfriend. And once upon a time I had a Ferrari, and I drove it into Manchester, and I did something, and I came back, and the Ferrari had a scratch all the way down the side of it, and I didn't have any idea at all who it was. All I knew was that this girl had followed me into Manchester, and a few days later she wrote a letter saying, I wonder who scratched your Ferrari, with loads of question marks behind it. So I obviously knew it was her. We used to have a few spliff sessions. They were good times, and Gary used to always go on about how much he liked trees things, and I liked hills. You like trees, and everyone else liked girls. You know, we had some funny times. I mean, me and Gary, we stayed in this. It was this penthouse suite in Sydney, right at the top of this hotel. It was amazing. I mean, it was a view of the Opera House, and we've got these old Polaroids of trying to light this spliff, this big spliff with this lighter, but with tears running down our eyes, you know. I mean, it's one of those things where you had to be there to know what was actually going on, but it was just hilarious, I've had some good times. But anything to do with cocaine and stuff like that, I've never touched it, and nobody touched it in the group. Whether Robbie touched it near the end, his last concert before he left, is a different story. I mean, I can't say whether he did, because I never saw him taking it. Gary, when I first met Gary, I mean, I was unsure of him, and as we got to know each other, we became best friends. I used to always share a room with him. I was always interested in what he did as far as studio work and the way a song's written, and just an amazing person, but with more seriousness than me. He was stingier than me. There's a reason I say he's stingy, because he sold me a keyboard, which was probably about 10 years old. It was one of these first sampler keyboards that does 1 second samples, and I'm sure he ripped me off on it. I think he sold it to me for something like 250 quid when the thing was 350 quid brand new, and this was a keyboard that was in his back cupboard that hadn't even been used. When we used to travel about in the van in the early days, and we needed to make phone calls, obviously mobile phones were the big thing back then, and he had this bloody enormous mobile phone like this with this big aerial on it, and there was a lead going to a big car battery. It was really, really ancient, but we always wanted to use it to phone somebody, and he used to charge us £1 each time, no matter how long the phone call. £1, come on, £1. Someone's got to pay for the bills. Yeah, not good. Pray was Pray was a great song. I loved that song from the first time I heard it. One of the things I concentrated on in the group was backing vocals, and I was given the chance every time when we was in the studio to work out harmonies for these songs, and it made me proud for Gary to say, "What's the next harmony, Doug? What's the next?" Because his nickname was Doug, for short for Douglas. "What's the next harmony, Doug?" And I'd come up with the harmony straight away, and that was a big thing on Pray, the backing vocals, which we did, and the same with Why Can't I Wake Up With You. I loved recording them songs because we was in the studio watching how they were created and watching the backing vocals being built up. So, and the video, I enjoyed doing the video, and also going to a so-called exotic country. Oh yeah, me and Robbie, we used to do this fan service in Japan. We'd all go in the loading bay at the back. Each of us would sit in a certain part, and all the fans would run in. Loads of these fans, these Japanese fans, who had saved up all year to pay for this hotel, which was incredibly expensive in Tokyo. And they would save up all the money just to stay in this hotel the nights we were staying in. And we'd do this fan service where they would all line up with all these presents, and you used to get loads of presents, you know, all Adidas tops, Nike, and so many things. I mean, me and Matt got a Sony DAT machine each, and that was only because I asked for one. I said that's what we need, and they brought it us the next time, which was really cheeky on me, but it came in handy. And they'd give you these room numbers, these Japanese fans, and I think in the early days when they first started giving them us, I thought we probably thought we was in for a promise. And you'd go to these rooms, and there was about 10 people staying in one room, and they'd have the pot noodles and they'd have the fast food with them because they couldn't afford to pay for the hotel food, because they'd just about scraped together enough money to stay in the hotel. But what me and Robbie used to do, we'd have all these room numbers, and we'd go to all these room numbers, see how many presents we could collect, and we'd also say, we'll take marks for you. We'd end up keeping it, or someone else's. And we used to play stupid. We just used to play stupid, like we'd go in the bathroom, put smear toothpaste over each other, and there would be some of these girls would come from school to the hotel room. We'd go in the wardrobe, find the school uniforms, put them on, or get them to put the school uniforms on, and we'd raid the minibar. So, which wasn't very nice, as being as they tried saving money, and we was raiding their minibar with a beer which cost something like £5. It's not very good for their pockets, but good for ours. Take that means 6 years of my life that I still can't believe happened to me. I can't believe how successful it became. I mean, I can believe how successful it became because we worked our butts off to get it successful. It was 6 years of our life, 6 years totally of hard work, of fun, good times, bad times, a bit of a roller coaster really. And it was a group, take that was dominated the 90s.
Take That were 5 lads, I suppose a boy band you'd call us, perhaps one of the first boy bands, from Manchester or around Manchester. We sang, we danced, we tried to send ourselves up a lot and not take ourselves too seriously. I think we were all quite good lads, good boys, good working class lads, very ambitious, and loved to show off and perform and produce nice music and have a good time. So when I went to meet Nigel for the first time, it was a bit weird because he was looking at me. He was sort of weighing me up and down, you know. Because when I was dancing on the stage, when he'd see me dance on the stage, my hair was wet and I was sweating and I was looking different to how I was that day in his office. I'd smartened up a bit, you know.
And you had clothes on, probably.
I had clothes on, yeah. I think, to be fair, Robbie and I got it the worst from Nigel. You know, Nigel, I'm not going to be accusatory towards Nigel, that's up to him, but I think I felt like me and Rob got a lot of stick off Nige in the earlier days. Actually right through, but especially in the earlier days. And possibly because we needed it. Nigel, I think, will argue that we were the two lads that needed the most taming, perhaps. But no, Robbie didn't get it worse than me. No way. I met Gary first, and my first impressions were, he was nice enough, but he was different. He was from a different place. I'd never met anybody like him before. So he was nice enough, but just a bit strange. But I liked him. And I looked up to him, actually, to Gary. I sort of became in awe of him quite quickly. He played me some of his songs, and then he sang. And he sang beautifully, I thought. You know, I'd never heard somebody sing so nicely. So I was sort of in awe of Gaz straight away, and that continued, actually, throughout the rest of the band. Howard and Mark, I immediately warmed to, because they're both just dead lovely lads. You know, I related to them straight away. Robbie, I just thought he was a bit of a geek at first, when I first met him. Gary was obviously the centrepiece, singer-songwriter, the creative sort of nucleus of the band. Mark was probably, he was shorter in height and he was more like a young boy, if you like, so he was appealing to younger girls. Robbie, everyone knew how funny he was and crazy he was, so I guess he was the funny one. And myself and Howard, I think, just made up the numbers at the back. We were the dancers. Nigel had the idea that we had to be quite controversial. We should dress ludicrously. When I look back now, it was ludicrous. Bondage gear and chains and lycra and all sorts of stuff. But we were always excited by it because it felt different, and we felt Nigel knew what he was talking about, and he did. He really did. So yeah, we dressed ridiculously, and we'd do loads and loads of gigs, ranging from, we'd do school halls, you know, where kids are actually at school. We go into their schools and invade their assemblies to do our 2 or 3 songs to backing track, you know. The teachers must be looking at us like, oh my God. All our bondage gear on, and these teachers and the pupils are there. We did schools, we did every different type of club, we did radio, road shows, you know, we performed our little routine on stages, 3 foot by 3 foot. We're all crammed on there trying to do our gigs. You know, we just did the most ridiculous things. I don't remember Nigel saying no sex, just don't have any full-time girlfriends, because it was Nigel's idea. He had this idea that if we didn't have full-time girlfriends, then we would be available for our fans, you know, our teen fans, our gay following. As far as money is concerned, the most memorable time for me was when we all got issued a cheque after tax. Yeah, because we had it set up where we took money from our account after paying tax. So I got this cheque and I put it in my bank, and I had to go 3 or 4 days later to the cash point and see it on the screen that the money had gone into my bank. And it was a huge amount of money. And I just stood there. I was 24, 24 years old, and I'm stood there looking at this amount and thinking, nice one, that's great. To me, the most important thing about Take That, always from the beginning, was our personal relationships, right? And when I felt like we were tight amongst ourselves, I felt like we were kings of the world, okay? Whether it's because I'm from a large family of brothers and sisters and I understand about the importance of unity and camaraderie, but I just always felt good when we were tighter. So when you say about coming home back to Manchester, yeah, I was very proud to come home and do a big gig at a big arena in Manchester, but yeah, I don't remember feeling any more proud than anywhere else, really. As long as we were together as a group, doing a great show, I was always proud wherever we were. I think Lulu was gracious enough to make you feel like, you know, you're special with her, and you know, she seemed to dote on all of the boys and, you know, give us all equal attention. But yeah, I felt very close to Lulu for a period. She's a lovely spiritual lady.
Did you give her one?
Did I give her one? I don't remember. If I did, I don't remember. I'm a gentleman.
She says you did.
Did she?
She says you were marvellous.
Yeah, well, that doesn't matter. Yeah. If Lulu says I've given her one and she says I was great, that's fine by me. One time we'd walked into a backstage, I think it might have been a Brit Awards or a Smash Hits, you know, one of those big pole awards. We'd walked backstage where there were other artists, I mean big name celebrities there, and everybody stopped and looked at us when we walked in. And for me, so when I talk about how I always felt great when I felt tight, we were tight as a band, it was sort of during those times. There could be other big names and faces, but people would stop what they were doing and look at us, and I felt like, yeah, you better look at us, because we're tight, we're a band, and we're here. It was a gradual process, really. You know, the growth, the success of the band was gradual, and I think the demise, the falling down, was a gradual thing as well. I just think, gradually, we all got, you know, things became too chaotic. We were all getting too much money, perhaps. Egos became too inflated, and tensions just started to come about amongst us all. Probably I think Robbie was, Robbie always wanted to be more or do more than what he was doing in the band. So he started to cause problems, or to rephrase that, he started to become a problem for us, because he just didn't want to rehearse the routines, and he just didn't want to be he didn't seem to want to be a part of it. Whereas perhaps a year before, you know, when we were enjoying our greatest success, he was more up for it. He seemed as proud as all of us to be part of Take That, and he was doing his job, and it was brilliant. But then at some point, he decided it wasn't enough for him, I think. When Robbie left, I didn't feel that much. For whatever reason, Robbie and I didn't get on that well in the band. I always really liked him. Part of me always liked him and was fond of him, and he always made me laugh. Very funny guy. And I think he liked me in some ways, but we just went against each other. We just rubbed up against one another in the band. I think he thought I was too severe, too strict, and a bit straight. And I thought he was too the other way. I didn't think he was disciplined enough, and Anyway, we had this clash. So when he left that day, I wasn't that bothered really. In fact, I think probably, if I'm truthful, I was probably quite excited by the drama of it all. I could feel like worthless in the band. I could go through periods where I felt like totally worthless, and I didn't deserve to be there, and I was hanging on by the skin of my teeth. And I think there was times where I wanted more support and encouragement from Nigel, and I didn't get it. So I'm telling you because if Robbie felt the same and he was a few years younger than me, it was tremendous pressure really. I think Gary probably was like a casualty of Robbie's success, just because, you know, again I'm stating the obvious, but Gary was going to be the big star, he was going to be the next George Michael, so the tabloids were saying, and it wasn't, it was Robbie. You know, turned out to be this, you know, the big thing. And as a result, the press battered Gary. But again, because that's what sells newspapers, you know, Robbie had this success, so they needed to show Gary's failure. And Gary hadn't failed, as it happened. He might have failed a little bit in being a solo artist, but you know yourself, you've interviewed him recently. He's having a great life, he's very successful. He's still writing great songs, and he's having a good life. He's married and with a couple of kiddies. But I suppose Gary had to be mocked severely to show how that disparity, you know, between success and failure. Gary was just a victim of that. My immediate plan after the band was to go off to the Lake District for a few weeks, which is what I did. I took my tent, I went camping for a couple of weeks. And after that I didn't have any plans. Actually, I did. I just forgot about these. My plan was to have a huge rest, so I went to the lakes and did a few weeks camping. And then I took a cottage in the lakes and just stayed in a cottage there and took long walks and just chilled out and sort of, you know, had a bit of a rest. And then I started having acting lessons, thinking I was going to be an actor. So I had some acting lessons and I did a couple of acting jobs, but I didn't like it. So I stopped acting in 1999, and I've done nothing work-wise since. One day I hope to be, you know, settled with someone, a couple of, you know, kids, lots of children actually if I can. Yeah, and I hope to be able to put on a Take That video, or DVD, or whatever else it's on later on, and be proud and say, yeah, you know, and look back at the whole thing and be proud of it, and, you know, feel just good things about it. The happiest moments for me were always when I'd felt like I'd done a great show. I'd come off stage and I'd felt like I'd performed to my full. You know, I felt like I'd given myself. And when the other happiest times were when I felt like part of what was going on, I felt emotionally secure in and amongst the lads, you know, the group I was in. And like I say, when we'd walk backstage sometimes and there could be other celebrities there waiting to perform and they'd look in awe at Take That, I felt great. Since the breakup, nearly 10 years ago, I've gone back to college, did some college courses, I did some backpacking, travelled the world. I've sat around a lot, pondering a lot, chilled out a lot. Yeah, so now I'm 35. I don't have to go back to work financially at the moment, but I'm just starting now to feel like I would like to go back and do something, but I'm not sure what yet. I'd love to take that to be remembered as a team of lads, a bunch of blokes that came along from nowhere, took the charts by storm, took the world by storm, had a brilliant time, wrote some nice songs and danced some nice dance routines and gave everybody some good memories.
When I was 13, 14, I was mad into breakdancing. I was in a few breakdance crews. My breakdance name was Zeus. I had that on my tracksuits, and so I used to do a lot of dancing in that kind of style. But I think that around that time, my only kind of bit of entertainment came on a Friday night in the local disco. Doing MC Hammer dancing. That was kind of the max. And so no, I wasn't. When you go to secondary school, I was a good singer when I was in like primary school and junior school, and I went to secondary school and I was always asked by the music teacher to join the choir, but it was not really a done thing. It was a bit naff. You had a choice of being in the football team or being in the choir, and I went more for the football team at the time. So I had entertained through my life, but not for a few years. I remember meeting Rob outside, and he was wearing, if I can remember correctly, like this orange hoodie top, and he was with his mum. And I was with my mum, and I think we were probably the only two who turned up with our mums, and I remember just kind of at the door meeting up with Rob, and we kind of walked in together. But when we got in there was 4 other people, but I don't think the other guy even got a chance to take his coat off, if I'm honest. I don't think he didn't seem to. I don't remember him staying around very long at all. And then the fun started. There wasn't an audition, it's not like you see these shows now where there's a queue of 1,000 people. So I don't know what Nigel would have done. I think he'd made his mind up, but we all did a little bit of dancing, and I remember Jason and Howard being really good at the dancing kind of thing. Me and Rob being not so good, and Gary being pretty bad at the dancing. And then probably the opposite way around for the singing. And we sang a song and we did a little bit of dancing, and we kind of got to know each other a little bit, and Nigel's a little low, and and then that was it. We kind of left, and we went, and I seem to remember we went to Boots for lunch, and we sat down, and we all had like a sandwich. I think Nigel bought us a sandwich and a cup of coffee or something, and we all sat down and decided how we were going to become a big band, how we were going to get world domination, and what we were going to spend our first bit of money on. And I also seem to remember at that table, although I could be wrong, us saying, but we'd finish on top. We'd never go beyond, that moment. I remember one of the sweetest things that happened around that time. My mates, where I used to live, we used to always go out on a Friday and Saturday night, but they knew I was a bit down for cash now. And I got this card, and I'll never forget this, I got this card, a good luck card, and 80 quid, and they'd all put a tenner of the wages into the card for me, so I could go out and have a night out, have a weekend out with the boys. And that was really special. I had good friends, man, really good friends. I've never forgot that to this day. That they really helped me out when I really needed a little bit of money. Our first gig. Now you've got to bear in mind, I'd been rehearsing this show for however long it was, a month or whatever. There was one point in this whole show where I had a lead role. One point, and I actually took the front of the stage, and I think it was for a song called Waiting Around. You've got me hooked on a string so long. You've had me hooked on a string so long, and now I must go. And I think that I opened this routine up, and I'd been practicing my counting on that bus, day, night, in bed, day, night, and I messed it up. My first moment, I remember being in the dressing room after, shitting my pants. I thought that was it. I thought I was out of the band. I remember just sitting there thinking, oh my God. We had all our family and everybody there. The rest of it was easy. I was at the back, I could just follow the boys, you know. But there was me one moment of the being at the front, the limelight, and I messed up. And I just remember I thought that was it. I thought in the dressing room, I'm going to be out of the band. We had our first photo shoot, and then a couple of little small TV things. Then started to play a few clubs. And a lot of gay clubs was where we started off. You know, I remember, you know, we'd be in our dressing room and the guy had introduced, you know, yeah, take that. And the song would start and we'd all be trying to get out of our dressing room, you know, and we knew we had like 4 bars to get to the stage. But, you know, as you're running through this club, you're being grabbed, you know, people were grabbing your ass and like holding on to you, and we'd kind of, the song would kick in, and by the time we actually got onto the stage, we're like halfway through it, you know, and there was only like, probably at those points, we used to have these little Tandy microphones, because you couldn't afford 5 radio mics, and no clubs would have 5 radio mics, so we had these little Tandy £10 microphones, where we used to cut the wire off, and Gary would have like a live mic, or there might have been 2 live mics that were passed around, but mainly passed around between Howard and Gary, that kind of vibe, because Howard would do some harmony, or Rob would do some rapping, or you know, that kind of thing. So I was little, and you'd dance away, and you know, you had all these moves, and you at some point obviously try and do a breakdance move, and the end of your mic would fall off, but you still up there in your little cycling shorts, your mic's hanging off your little wire, trying to do your thing, trying to look dignified, you know, and still really believing that it's real. It's real! I'm singing out, can you not hear me? What do you mean? So yeah, those days were a lot of learning and a lot of just finding your way around, you know, and very humorous, and going up and down the country in vans, and then we had our first single, and we had our first video. And I think that was the next stage, really, was going into the whole do what you like kind of era. I just remember when we got our first chart position, maybe there was a bit of naivety in it, but we all went round to Nigel's house really excited, you know. I think we had like champagne on ice and all that kind of stuff, and I seem to remember us being sat in Nigel's van, and we sat there listening to this chart rundown, and we thought, you know, 40 down, and we were thinking, yeah, we've given out our flyers, we've done our gigs, we've done our shows, you know, been on telly a few times, and we got all the way down to number 2, and I think we actually thought a little bit, maybe we've gone in at 1, you know, maybe we've gone straight in with our first single at 1, and obviously the next day we found out we went in at 82. Yeah, so then I think we realised it's not quite going to be as easy as we thought. I think there's certain areas when you look at where you felt more confident in what you were doing. You know, you get given roles. You know, you get almost pigeonholed into in a sense as to, you know, Jason's the sensitive one, and you know, the deep one, and you know, I was like, you know, the cute smiley one. You know, Rob was the, you know, the funny one, and Gary was the songwriter, and Howard was the body, you know, or whatever. You know, you get given these kind of, that's horrible to say that Howard was the body. Howard was a great singer, actually. He did great harmony, and so you get given these little kind of roles. I think the times throughout the whole band where I felt at my most confident was when we were talking about putting shows together and styling shows. I think that is where I think I've always had quite a visual side to me, and I think that in that sense, whether it was in the look of the band, whether it was in the dressing of them, and you know, or whether it was putting shows together, thinking of ideas for, you know, how we perform this song, how we would do that, that is where I found more confidence. In my singing within the band, I was never that confident, you know, not through lack of trying, but it wasn't a place where I felt really comfortable. I remember the first time I heard Rob really sing, it was in Amsterdam. We were out in Amsterdam, and we went to a karaoke bar, and we all had a little smoke. I turned green and got carried home by security. But I remember getting up and actually hearing Rob. I think he sang "Mac the Knife" was the song that he sang, and that was the first time I really heard Rob sing out. And it was actually great to hear that. I don't know whether there was, did Rob want to sing more songs? I don't. It's something you'd have to ask him. Did he feel bad about it in that way? Was there a competition between them? I'm not so sure. I looked through bits of footage. I've seen footage, and what I see is they got on actually really well for most of the time. Now, what went on under that, I'm not sure.
After leaving Take That, I said some very unfair things about the boys, and did some stupid stuff that I don't regret, because I was only very young and was hurting a lot. But I think that my actions were questionable after I left the band. Towards I didn't say anything nice about any of them apart from Mark. I seem to think that my mum heard about it on the radio station one morning and sent my CV off, which of course was extensive. My work at the Rep, and have you seen my Dodger? I was fantastic. And she sent the CV off, and then I got a call, I believe, from Nigel Martin Smith to go up and be interviewed. And only two things I can remember was my mum coming with me, which was slightly embarrassing because none of the other lads there had their mums with them, and none of the rest to Take That were at this particular interview or audition. And the other thing I can remember was feeling incredibly intimidated and nervous about going into this guy's office, and then he didn't do anything to put that at ease in any way. He's a formidable character, and I remember being incredibly scared of him. But I can remember thinking, well, I was cheeky chappy, I suppose, even then. So I went and had that original meeting. Then I went for the audition. That was right. I went back from Wales to the audition, and my mum dropped me off again, and I was like, "Mum, don't walk up the street with me. Go off." And as I looked up, there was another lad having exactly the same conversation with his mum. "Mum, leave it now." And as we got closer, it was like, "I am Rob," and he said, "I am Mark," and that was Mark Owen. And we walked down the Carge nightclub stairs into the club itself. And I can remember thinking, right, Manchester, because Manchester was a big, big town at the time. For me, it was like, we're in Manchester. Wow, look at this, it's a big city. So I came in and I walked round and I saw this guy, and I'm a real trainer snob, sneaker snob, absolute snob. And I walked in and there was this guy with, I've got to say, a Morrissey haircut. And I was thinking, swat. and now I'm not, it's like I tried to have it cut the same today, and it was Gary, and he got blonde hair, I seem to remember, and he got these Converse 100s on with an Italia 90 jumper, if I seem to remember correctly. And I just looked at his trainers and I thought, knob. And he got this briefcase, and in this briefcase was a load of dots, musical scores for different songs and stuff. Hiya, I'm Gary. And I met him, and then there was only Howard came late. Sorry, Nigel, sorry. And Nigel didn't seem to mind. That's weird. Didn't seem to mind. Howard had a lovely body. And so Howard came in late, and I remember Jay, and he'd been on the hit Man and Her, and I was very, very impressed with that. Not only that, but I was so in awe that he could break dance so well, and he used to be in a breakdancing group that that I knew about. And then there was this other lad that was really into the Smiths, and he came from Stoke-on-Trent. He was the only other lad there, I seem to remember. He had a pair of Dr. Martens on up to here, and he couldn't dance and couldn't sing. Not that that should stop him. But he didn't. He sort of had the wallflower kind of attitude and kind of charisma, you know. He was definitely an indie kind of kid. He got sent away early, and then the rest of us did Nothing Can Divide Us, then danced a bit, and then did some routines that Nigel watched, and I just really was so nervous. And I think Debbie, his business partner, came down. I can't remember. Anyway, did the audition, went home. Howard had an amazing sense of humour, absolutely amazing. He used to have me in hysterics all the time, and I loved him when he was on form. You know, I loved him, but I mean, I loved to hear him making funny comments or making funny noises, because, you know, he was genuinely the funny member of the band. You know, and also he had an amazing voice. And he's got amazing musical ability. He can harmonise to anything, and he's got amazing rhythm. And I always thought that, you know, he'd be an amazing songwriter. He also could dance really well, and had great hair. Jason, me and him bumped heads all the time, and having been sent the backstage footage just recently, like 60 hours worth of or something, I was watching it. I watched a lot of it, and I was just an annoying little sod. At the best of times, I was annoying. At the worst of times, you know, I suppose I could make them titter every now and again. And Jason took a barrage of just piss taking and winding up from me, you know, to the point of really pushing it over the edge. And I'm sure, you know, that if we weren't working so hard and we got things to do, he would have battered me. You know, he should have, in all rights, Jason should have battered me for how bloody rude I was to him, to tell you the truth. But he was so easy to wind up. You know, I couldn't help it, you know. And the thing is about winding people up is that the more it riles them, the more, you know, they've got the bait. We've got to wind them in now. You know, and I'm sure he'll say, but you gave it, but you couldn't take it. Perhaps I couldn't. But with Jay, you know, he took an awful lot of battering from me verbally. But Jay's a good man, you know. He's a good man, and I hope whatever he's up to, he's doing well at it, and he's feeling happy, because he's one of the best dancers I've ever seen or met, you know. I did bring into question, once I left Take That, and subsequently ever since, Gary Barlow's merits as a songwriter. You know, and I actually downloaded all the Take That albums a few months ago and listened to all of them, and I remember at the time genuinely thinking, after I'd left anyway and I wanted to become Oasis, you know, I remember thinking, he's a genuinely crap songwriter, you know. But as time's gone by and a bit of maturity has come to me, and basically the folly of trying to be something that I'm not has slipped away, you look back at his songs and he's an amazing songwriter. You know, he had deserved and deserves the recognition he had for the talent he has. You know, there's classic pop songs all the way through every album, and he delivered one after another, and you know, hats off to him. He is an amazing talent. Mark is probably the nicest man in history. You know, I think probably to his own detriment a lot of the time. You know, he was my little buddy. And, you know, I think all of us probably had killer instincts. You know, there'd be a point where we go, ah! You know, Mark just hasn't. You know, he genuinely is. I bet he was Florence Nightingale in a previous life or something, or I don't know. His albums, I've got to say, since going solo, have probably been the most authentic songs out of the lot of us. You know, his albums and his lyrics and his melodies are amazing. All the old photos and everything and all the old videos I think are brilliant. And it also, you know, for embarrassment's sake, you'd have to go a long way these days for me to be embarrassed, because I got my arse wiped off with a mop and loads of jelly as me and 4 of my mates lay on our fronts naked, you know. And then we had cod pieces and pit boots and lycra all-in-ones, you know. And at the time, you know, because there's a set of rules that if you're of a certain mindset you have to adhere to. You know, I was really into hip-hop and I was really into indie music, and the two didn't go together, you know, so there was an internal embarrassment all the time. But now, brilliant pop. And when I say pop, I mean the photos, the interviews. They were just great pop stars. And I must say, I don't think there's been a boy band as good as us for entertainment and for songs ever since. Yeah. And you'd be hard pressed to find one before too. Yeah. You know, I'm not talking about the Beatles. They're not a boy band. You know, I'm talking about your archetypal 4 or 5 lads on stage singing and dancing. You know, and New Kids were great. And what's the one Justin Timberlake was in? NSYNC weren't too bad. But for a live show, you know, our shows were as good as a Madonna show, I think. No. You know,
talking about the rules,
boy bands are friggin' lazy these days. Ballad, stand. When I see it, it annoys me. So I know how hard we worked and I know how hard they got me to work, because I was lazy too, but I still did it. Westlife. We did this club. We did a PA in there. Do what you like. And afterwards, we had a meet and greet. Loads of girls came back in. And this room was full of girls. And this one girl just backed onto me. And I remember thinking she was really fit. And I was 17, hormones raging. And she started playing with my cock in the dressing room. Like that. And I'm looking over at Nigel to see if he can see, and he's not looking and all I'm doing is watching Nigel like that, thinking, how am I gonna get her back to the B&B? Because he was staying at a B&B on the front. And so we went, right lads, we're going now. So I went, B&B on the front, see you in a bit. Off she goes. Then we go back to the B&B and then go on the beach for a drink and a smoke and chat about the night. And then loads of girls came out from the club, you know. And so Nigel went, right lads, in. So we went back into the B&B. And Nigel had imposed there's no sex ban. Now, me and Mark get into my room. I went, Mark, there was a girl at the club, and she did, and I'm looking at Nigel, and I'm going out in my man, because that's telling me I've got to go and do the thing I've got to do, right? And it's only natural, right? So why should I be stopped doing it, right? And he goes, you're right, Robbie. Why don't you go and tell Nigel? I will. I'll go and tell him. I'll be brave. It's only natural, right? And he goes, yeah, and I'll hide in the cupboard. So he hides in the cupboard. I go and knock on Nigel's door. I went, Nigel, there's a girl outside, right? She wants to sleep with me and I want to sleep with her, and I think it's only natural, and I think you should just let me this one time. So he goes, and he thinks about it for a bit. Bearing in mind, she's already knocked on my window, because we're on the bottom floor. So she's knocked on my window, and I've opened the curtains, I've gone like that. And I'm looking around the whole of the bottom floor, saying, well, I could get through the shower window and I could jump out of here. I go to the other floor and jump down. Nigel's right next door to me. So, and I was fully expecting to probably be sacked, right? Or to be really shouted at. And he went, yeah, all right, just this once. Yeah, but... Oh, okay, thanks. Went into my room and I'm like, oh, he's letting me do it, he's letting me do it to Mark, right? And then Nigel obviously thought about it and come in. And he went, actually, I thought... And Mark was laughing in the cupboard and he went, who's in there? And I went, Mark! Grasped him straight up, Mark Owen! Like that. And he went, right, you, out, and you, bed, like that. And I'm thinking, oh, I really shagged that one, didn't I? My drug taking would have happened with or without Take That, you know, and before Take That, I'd done acid and speed and smoked a lot of weed. So I was sort of heading into that direction anyway. And, you know, I think, yeah, for me, the drug intake obviously sped up a lot quicker until it was my life, you know. But for the other lads, it wasn't really part of their life. Probably the best times were just when the 5 lads were together and we would laugh. Because we did a lot of laughing and a lot of giggling, you know, and there's not one... I think probably the best time, Promises had just gone in at number 39. We were in a hotel in London and we all jumped up and down on my bed and we broke it. That's the most excited I've ever been about a chart entry of Take That or me solo. I've never been more happier than 39 with Promises, because we got in the top 40. I think, you know, it's like I'd go into a room with Mark, Howard and Jason now, you know, but I think with Gary, I think there's a strange mixture of guilt from my part on what I said after I left the band, and also knowing that I wouldn't get any resolve. Yeah, I wouldn't get any resolve. Because I don't think, as a person, he could see how he was, or what he did, or how he acted, or how he behaved. And also, you know, it's like, I've been on Friends Reunited. I've tried to get in contact with people from my school. It hasn't worked out. Why should Take That be any different? It's 12 years ago. You know, I was a person then that I'm not now. You know, and people move on. And yeah, there wasn't a goodbye properly. And maybe there will be in the future. But right now, I don't think I could be in the same room with Gary.